be a Patreon kind of episode here, just off the cuff, just because we have Ez, myself, and my brother Nick. What is your Wheel of Time name on our podcast here? I think it is something, right?
He's been a couple things. He's been our Taviran.
He's a Taviran.
I am
Ser
a
Nick.
Taviran on the
He is Taviran.
You could just call me the Chosen.
Whoa.
They may go, you may call them Forsaken, but we prefer to go by Chosen.
and now he can totally say that. I think he's been waiting to say that for a long time. Just like, oh, geez, cow.
So so we got Nick back on here for some Patreon content. This is definitely gonna be fun. Nick and I were actually talking the other day, and hopefully maybe at some point we can get Ez and Nick just doing some stuff where they can do spoilers, because I know it's really hard for two people who have both read the series, and I'm here and I'm like, well, and you guys got to hold it back. So Nick, we were talking about characters. I was kind of telling you just where I'm at in the series, right? Like what I think about the characters, who I like, who I don't like, and who I think I might like going forward. And I was kind of going through the list, and I was like, I think right now my favorite character. I mean, my favorite character ultimately has to be Rand, and just because Rand's the main character, right? I mean, it's like he's the character that I want to know more about is Rand. And so we didn't get a lot of Rand in The Dragon Reborn. And so even where we're at now, which is roughly chapter 20, I am just a little bit ahead of what will be our next episode. So I'm in like chapter 22, the very beginning of it, of the fourth book, The Shadow Rising. I mean, anytime Rand steps on the stage, like obviously all the other characters are like secondary. So I think it's fair to say Rand's obviously my number one, but after that, really, when I start thinking about it, I mean, I think Matt is really my number two, although over the course of it, Matt's arc has been, it's been kind of odd because we talked about this as, I mean, I feel like you don't even get Matt until like the beginning of the last book. Or not the last book, but the last book that we read, which is The Dragon Reborn, because he's sick and then he's dealing with stuff. And so it's almost like once Matt wakes up, right? He wakes up, and then Egwene and Nynaeve and everybody, the girls go visit him, and then he like wrecks Gawain and Galad in kind of that fighting thing, and then he's like, all right, I'm gonna go hang out with Tom. So that for me is when I feel like Matt's his character. So Matt's definitely my number two. Now, Nick, you and I were talking about Perrin, and I feel like a lot of people, and I think this is pretty, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I mean, I feel like a lot of people is like Perrin seems to be one of those characters that people either love him or they don't.
I want to see what Nick thinks about this, because you actually asked this question in the podcast, and I tried to I dance around a little bit, and I don't want people to think, because I also don't want to jade people's thoughts on a particular character. So I always try to err on the side of super positivity. Everything's cool, everything's awesome. I think some people want to hear me riff on characters like Perrin, and actually not even Perrin, but Fael. I think they want me. I mean, that some people, one of the things that, and it's out there, but one of the things that the showrunner has talked about, making improvements in the book series. So places where for years, like the fandom has had time to like digest the series, look back on it, say, what do we like? What do we not like? And they're taking that into consideration. And so anyways, I mean, but I feel like people they like Perrin. I'm not so sure that they like maybe like his arc or how long it takes to get to where we're going to get to with him. But I don't know, Nick, what do you think about Perrin?
Yeah, Perrin's development's definitely pretty slow. It builds. I mean, you're still finding stuff out till the last freaking book,
Yeah,
like literally, it's. I mean, I love Perrin. Perrin's a great character, but
I do too. Yeah,
it's such a slow development. I can see why people wouldn't like his arc, but I love Perrin.
Yeah, I actually like him too. And actually, we're about to get to a part that, and Nick, you know what I'm talking about. It's in the book that we're in. And then, by the way, I also wanted to kind of title this episode "Dancing Around Spoilers." That's what Nick and I are trying to do, and it was so great because Nick has already got to experience
already
what
let
it's
like
like.
2 of them slip.
It's
in
before
the
we
pre-session.
Yeah, before we started, before we hit record, but there weren't anything, actually Nick brought up, and I'm not going to mention the character's name, but Nick brought up a character that I totally forgot about. Quite frankly, like I completely forgot about. And actually,
I don't even know how you forgot about him.
I don't either.
Huge deal.
And actually, but the thing is though, when you said like when Matt was trying to say like his name and you were saying his name, he told me this like a week or so back, or that you guys had that conversation. And when Matt first asked me, I was like, wait, who? And then I was like, so then once I looked him up and I saw what he was doing, like I remember what he did in the final, book and even, but I didn't remember his name. I couldn't have told you that was his name though. I was like, what was his name? I mean,
yeah,
like,
and that was from a post I saw, because I obviously I don't go read the wiki or anything to try to jump ahead, but I do follow some Wheel of Time people, and somebody had posted a poll and they said who is like the best commander, in Wheel of Time, and like there were 5 names I don't even know, to be entirely honest, and so
and just
I was like,
people who are listening too, I don't want them to hear.
And so literally I said, man, I just saw this poll today, and I was like, all I was hoping was I'd say, hey, I mean, it was like, wow, it was like 90% this guy. And I was just, you're kind of expecting Ez to be like, oh, yeah, that guy's like a boss. And then Ez was like, I kind of don't remember who that is. And then I
could tell you why. There actually, when we get off here, when we're done, there's something I will say to Nick, because I thought about why. Like after we talked about this, I was like, well, there's a really good reason why all of those guys you mentioned kind of like, there's just reasons why something happens and you go, okay, all that was a little bit not insignificant. And this is where I want to talk to Nick, about it on the side, because I'm like, that's to me, it was relegated to the back seat compared to what other things that were happening. So that was, I don't know, maybe, and here's the thing too, and I've said this on the podcast, I have reread like the first several books numerous times. Like those are my favorites. I love, reading through those and those arcs. I'm like, this is freaking sick, and then sometimes I run out of time and I just, read through the wiki and run ahead and stuff. I would say I've only probably been through the series once on my own, and then once with my buddy Tom. And then I attempted to, before we started the podcast, I kind of did like a rough run through, like jumping around here and there, that kind of thing, just so I kind of had like a quick refresh, because it had been years. So before we started the podcast, it had been years since we started to read this. And as I'm even right now, Nick, I'm looking up, and I'm calling this dancing around spoilers here. As I'm looking ahead, well, just go look at, Jeremy, Matt, your brother, right, gave you that book, the black book. I said, be careful, open it up, because thousands of names in there. There are thousands of characters that
my gosh, I have the black book, and I totally spoiled myself on accident. I can't say because we're not there yet, but there's a character I looked up, and it's like, see this character, and like the name it gave me totally spoiled.
It totally will. Yeah, you gotta be careful with that, because the names. You gotta be careful with names in this book, because that's
anyway, so then as I told Nick, and Nick was like, oh yeah, that guy's like that guy's so good.
Nick was in on that guy.
Nick knew.
Those he's a POV character. Those chapters are great.
Yeah, and it's so there's so many, there's just so many characters. And that's the thing, is sometimes I'll see stuff and I'm like, I have no idea who that is. And then there's some stuff where people are talking about it, it's like, I already read that. I'm like, who is that again? Because it's like, oh yeah, I forgot.
Listen, every character is important. That farmer that gave Rand a scarf in book 1, he might show up later. Big deal.
And there are thousands of those, buddy. That's the thing.
There's so many little characters, and you see him like 3 books later. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy.
He names all of them. But the events though that character you're talking about, I remember the events and I remember what he did, but I like to put a name to him. So like right now. Remember that character I mentioned before we started, Nick? I was talking about my least favorite character. Before we started this whole reread, I was like, what the heck was her name? And because I was like, she frustrated the living. I knew her first name. I couldn't think of the last.
She's such a boss, though.
I know. So, I mean, it's like a love-hate thing. But anyways, so you kind of think to yourself like, okay, you remember like the major events and sort of what happened and sequence of events and big turns, big reveals, that kind of stuff. But yeah, because I relegated all those guys to backseat. But anyways, that is, and there's a reason for it. But yeah, man, it's neat to kind of see who sticks out in your mind because like me, for example, I've always been on Ingtar, big Ingtar
Oh
fan.
yeah.
Love it. And I think some people were I got a couple messages from people like, really? He's kind of insignificant. I'm
I
like,
don't know if
well,
I don't know if you mentioned it. I think you might have mentioned it in one of the earlier episodes, but in the prologue of book 2, when they're talking about the meeting or whatever with a man named Boris, Ingtar is totally in that meeting.
Yeah, we
Because they
talked about that in
reference,
the podcast.
they
Yeah.
reference the
that's
Shinar
right.
soldier and
Absolutely walks right. And we haven't got to who so there's still mysteries to
The man
come
named
sort of and all of
Boris.
that.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I don't know. I don't know who that is just yet, but I'm sure we.
That's
I'm
just
sure we will, and
crazy.
I'm sure
Uh,
you and Nick know exactly who it is. You're like, oh, guys, it's such a big deal. Like you're gonna. Like,
Well,
right.
actually, I just had a few listeners who went on ahead and have messaged. So when people get ahead, here's an interesting seat that I'm in. They get ahead, they work ahead, and it's their first read because either they're
Right.
going at a slightly faster. Some people just if you
Right.
have the time, you're sprinting ahead. They sent me a message. I had 3 people sent me a message about Boars, and they were like, "OMG!" And I said, "Yeah, there are moments like that in the series where you're like, holy smokes!" Like there's payoff, right, Nick? I mean, like
oh yeah.
books later, there's
Yeah.
payoff on stuff that
Oh
happens. You're like,
yeah.
so
Yeah, they
nuts.
always, like, no matter how tiny you think it is, they always come back to it. It's one of the coolest things about this series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah. So all right, Nick. Well, we'll jump back because we were talking about those characters. And so yeah. So I feel like outside of Rand, Matt is probably my favorite. And then we'll talk about Perrin a little bit. And so I mean I like Perrin, and I feel like I will like Perrin more. Again, as you said, he's slow. Once we get into more of his story, it just feels like it's just man, it's just taken forever, right? It's like I want to know because it's very mysterious, right? Like the yellow eyes, and like it's like, was Robert Jordan just taking his time in doing it, or did he just not know where it's going? Because it's like literally every time it comes up, like when it comes up with other people, like somebody will have a dream and they'll see somebody with yellow eyes and like, well, that's obviously Perrin. And it's like, okay, so like clearly the characters know there's something going on with it, but we as the reader don't know. Like it feels like the characters know more about it, and they've talked about it off screen, and and so it's like, what's going on with it? And so I'm just like, is it something that like he's just like, well, I need to develop that further, and that'll be later, or
I think it was planned from the start. Because you gotta remember, in this series, time is a wheel. And so if that was, already a legend during the Age of Legends, so is it something coming again, or would this be when it starts, since it
Let's
goes
go.
in a wheel?
Let's go, Nick. Let's
oh,
go.
I hadn't
So
thought about that.
these are actually the legends in the Age of Legends.
Let's
Yeah.
go, buddy.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Uh-huh. It's a wheel.
Yeah.
The wheel weave.
Okay.
I love it.
All right. Yeah. So okay. So there's that with Parent, and I mean, if I yields mysterious, so I'm excited to see more. I think you guys have said some people don't like her, so I'm just not there yet to know whether I like her or don't. Lan is obviously amazing, and I'd be fine if I just got more Lan POV chapters. He's a total boss. I'm ready to see him do like something super epic, and amazing. Same with Moraine. I like everything we get with Moraine. And it's like she comes in and she's just kind of like, okay, I can save the day. But then sometimes she says things and I'm like, Moraine, what's going on? I feel like you're it's almost like we're Anakin and you're Obi-Wan and you're holding me back, and it's like I feel like she could tell us the answers, but she just won't. All of the girls, actually, of all the girls, I think the one I'm leaning towards liking the most is Elaine, actually. Just because, well, obviously she has ties to Rand, so that's cool, and that makes it awesome. But I almost like that to me, she feels behind the other girls, like in terms of like power scaling, and so I feel like when she really gets to channeling, it's gonna be pretty epic and pretty awesome, and she'll have like this huge epic moment. Of the girls, I like Egwene's great, and I like her arc, and you know, it feels like Egwene's powerful. The only thing I don't like about the girls is I feel like, and I don't know if this is just poor like writing. I don't want to say it's poor writing, because I think what he's doing is great, but it just feels like quite often with Nynaeve that it's almost like, well, we need to get out of this situation, so we'll just have Nynaeve get angry, and like the girls even say that, and then Nynaeve will just like fix the problem, and so it feels almost like a crutch, and so that to me, and then it's like I like Nynaeve, but I just don't like that sometimes it feels like, oh hey, we need to get past this plot section we're in. So, well, I guess we can just have Nynaeve get angry again, and that will kind of like fix the problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know.
Well, I mean, she can't help that she's carrying the team, right?
Well, yeah. But I mean, it's like
no, I get what you're saying.
It's more so that it feels like it's not even that like it's not that I don't like Nynaeve that she gets angry and then does stuff, but it just often feels like, to me at least, that it's like, well, we're in this situation. Well, I guess we'll just have Nynaeve get angry. It's almost like, was there not another way out? Like, because it feels like it's happening often enough to where it's almost like Robert Jordan didn't know what he was doing. Again, I don't want to say he didn't know what he was doing.
Well, I mean, it's, and I mean, they were dancing around it again. I mean, there is a reason that they keep
I love
this
that
up
Nick is
over
in
and over
this.
and over again. Like,
I
I can't say why, but there is a reason for it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe. Yeah. So,
but,
I mean,
but Matt, I get what you're saying, though. I mean, about like how it feels. You know what I mean? How it feels like that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean,
and that's frustrating. That's what you're in a front, like, because that's sort of what Jordan likes to do. I think he likes to put you in a, like, frustrate you a little bit, and like, holy cow, come on, man, like, are we really still doing this or that? And it's like, hold your horses. Like, you got to buy. Some people drop off in this series. Some people give up and they don't get all the way through because they reach moments with certain characters that they like. It's just some people, they do criticize his pacing. Not right now, but I mean, like, not even pacing. Maybe a better word is character development is what you're kind of talking about. But
I mean, it's almost like, you know, like, because he does a lot of things over and over, which is fine. I like that. Like, I like that every time we get to one of the boys being like, well, geez, I wish Matt, you know, it's like, I wish Matt and Rand were here to help me out talk about girls, but then they all do it individually. Yeah. And so it's cool. But it just feels like, to me, it just feels with Nynaeve, and I like Nynaeve. It feels almost more like the writer doesn't know what he's doing. And so it's like, well, how are we going to get out of this?
Knows what he's
doing. I know he knows what he's doing, but I'm just saying, I could totally see how other people who do get frustrated with this series are just like, you know, okay, well, it's like we're heading into a situation. Oh, well, what could possibly happen? I guess Nynaeve will just get angry again. Oh, and she did. Yeah, you know, that was pretty obvious. Yeah, and so, because I like her character, but
Can I count a counter to that? Because I mean, I don't want anyone to think we're, you know, like the counter to that is like, well, I guess it's just Taviran magic. I guess it's just Taviran, the nature of Taviran.
Right.
Yeah. Must be the Taviran, these Taviran boys. And that's where on the other side, people get a little bit like, seriously? Oh, so Matt's
I can see that. No, I can see that too. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, so it is sort of a, right now you're like, there's got to be more to this, which is, I think, what you're asking. Like, there's got to be. You bring it up too many times, like the golden eyes. You bring up the, you know, being angry, Taviran. It's brought up way too much for it not to like super matter. Right. You know what I mean? You've got to be thinking that.
I liked what he did where, so like one of the things I thought was really clever and cool was when Rand and Matt were in the Eye of the World, trying to escape, right? And then lightning comes down and he feels like, oh, lightning saved him. But then later you're like, oh, well, actually that was probably Rand using the power, right? And then Bella runs faster, right? And it's and so there's that, and that's probably going to happen with Nynaeve later, where it's like, okay, well, there is a bigger reason, as you guys say, but it's just like when Rand did when the lightning happens, the way it's told to us as if, well, the lightning just strikes, and then later we come to see, oh no, that was actually Rand with the power. In this situation with Nynaeve, it feels like literally, I mean, they say, well, we'll just make Nynaeve get angry again and that will fix our problem, as if there's no other way to get out of it. And so it just feels kind of like, I don't know. It's just like, well, I mean, that's all you've got, like, and so it causes me to question the writer, as if like, do you have a plan, or were you just like, well, okay, well, like, it almost feels like laziness. And again, I'm sure it's not. As you guys say, there is something bigger, and I'm not like going to put the series down or anything. It's just, these are just some of the thoughts I have right now.
Yeah.
And I have heard, people criticisms of the middle books, saying it takes forever. And so I'm just like, okay, wow, well, I can see maybe why people get frustrated and put the book series down. And so to those people, I mean, if this is something that I'm seeing right now, I mean, are those people kind of vindicated in in what they say? And ultimately, it's kind of like, if people are putting down your story, then I think that's not. I think it questions how good your story is. I mean,
yeah, it's how good your story is if you stop right there. Because I think anyone who finishes the series, there was somebody. It was actually this was online. I believe it was Daniel Green. Just to bring him up real quick, I believe he went off on. He read some article about a guy who talked about Wheel of Time and had a lot of negative. And he says the guy in his article admitted he never finished the series. Now that's a problem. That is for Robert Jordan, that guy didn't pick up the rest of his books and he didn't read his story. Why? Because he just you lost him somewhere along the way, and he didn't push through. He didn't know how to push through. So that can be a downfall, 100%. If you do push through and you finish the series, you realize that every single thing that was mentioned during those books mattered a crap ton. Right. And it's just like all builds, and it's like, wow.
Things you pick up on your second read through. Even your third, even your fourth read through, you pick up things.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And again, like you were talking about Rand and the Lightning, and I missed it my first read through, but the second time I read through the books, Moraine talks about how if you're untrained and you use the power, it causes like shakes and fevers and sickness. And then Rand gets sick right after the lightning hits. And it's like, I never caught that in my first read through, but it's pretty cool how.
Yeah.
Because that was like 10 chapters before that happened,
Yeah,
like
and again,
layers.
Yeah, and I love the series, and I love where we're at. I think it's awesome. So these are just thoughts. These are just thoughts I have. I'm not going to put it down or anything. And again, some of these thoughts I'm kind of, I guess, exploring more so to be like, hey, I'm wondering what other people are thinking. What other people are, maybe questions, thoughts people have also had around the series. And this is, I'm a first time reader, so I'm sure there are other first time readers that are like thinking the same thing too, or heard this, or this is where this is as far as they got in the series, because I'm going to put it down. And so
well, so you actually bring up a touch. I mean, it is kind of a touchy thing, I mean, Nick even asked me about it, like, and I like asked me just about like, well, I think you asked me like least favorite book. And I was kind of like, oh man, and by the way, I did find out, I just looked it up, which books I was talking about in regards to our two Ta'Viren. And I'll tell you that when we get done with this. But so anyways, it's like, it can be kind of a touchy subject for some people, because they're like, but it's so good. Some people who are just so passionate, they're like, I can't believe you would ever say that about the series. But then they probably have forgotten what it was like for those people who didn't push through, or who were like, I don't see it, or depending on how. I mean, you have to like Nick is saying, we're talking about 14 novels that are massive. This runs circles around many series. Like there's just no one who can keep up with.
And imagine being somebody who read the series as it came out, and you're waiting and waiting, like, oh my God. I mean, it's much different. Like my experience will be totally different, because
that's true.
Well, it's finished, so I can go see the full thing. As I know people, I have friends that were reading this as it was coming out, and they're like, oh my gosh, is this thing ever going to get finished? Yeah. I have friends that know people that they were the ones who told me about it all the time.
Yeah. Well, then when Robert Jordan died, like, I couldn't imagine that. Like, you're waiting for these books to come out, then the author dies.
Right.
And like, you're like, is it ever gonna get finished?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
can I so Nick, I was actually at Paragraphs bookstore, and
I love Paragraphs.
I love it, dude. I love it. I was there, and the lady who runs that was telling me, this was before I got into Game of Thrones and Wheel of Time. I had a choice before me. It was either read Game of Thrones before the show started, to read that first book, or Wheel of Time. I was way more interested in Wheel of Time, and so I got both books. And at the time, the series wasn't finished. I didn't even know. She was talking about there's a new writer who's taken over, all this kind of stuff, and I was like, cool. I mean, it's going to be finished. And she was telling the story of these, 3 boys and the whole thing. And I was like, I was actually Mrs. Hanson, who works over there, who was a teacher for me in middle school, and she ended up working over there. And so I got both, and I remember I finished Game of Thrones, and then I went right into I didn't get to A Memory of Light by the time it came out, but still, I can't imagine what it was like for people to like have gone through that time and had to wait. They didn't have to wait as long as we're waiting for Winds of Winter.
Yeah,
but,
no kidding.
but oh man.
Yeah, dude, I love Paragraphs. I picked up Wheel of Time there at Paragraphs. I picked up the Stormlight Archives. I picked up the Mistborn series. I picked up the King Killer Chronicles. Like,
oh
I've
wow,
gotten a lot of good series out of there.
wow, wow, yeah. So Brandon Sanderson is awesome. I've read Mistborn stuff. I have started the Stormlight series, but I've not. I'm only like chapters into the first book. I keep hearing it's amazing. So it's like, look, if Matt and I ever have a chance to do another, podcast, I've always been told that's the one we should get a group of people together.
I've heard
great about it.
That and Malazan is one that people keep telling me, and I don't really know anything about it other than it's another incredibly long series, and it's like, whew, I don't know, I don't have time. Dune, yeah, I would.
It's super long too. It's like 26 books or something like that.
Holy, oh god. That's crazy.
Well, because the author wrote I think he wrote 13, and then his son wrote 13 prequels. So it's like, God, Dune is massive. It's pretty good.
Jeez.
But yeah, but the Stormlight Archives, what's cool about those is the narrators for the audiobooks for Wheel of Time do the audiobooks for Stormlight Archives.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard wasn't Brandon
Kramer and Kate?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. They do a great. Matt, you listen to the audiobook, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely do the audiobook.
I think it's good. I know some of their pronunciations, like according to certain people, it's a little bit off, but I think it's great. Like I know it's Tar Valon versus Tar Valon, which is what we say.
It's funny. She in the first book she said Tar Valon, and then he said Tar Valon, and they kind of after the first book they got together, then they were saying things the same.
Right. Yeah.
She was calling him Lan instead of Lan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. So I was on the Dusty Wheel the other day, and I was like, "That's how you say that guy's name?" What? I was like, "What?" I was like, because his name's Matt Hatch, and he's been around for a long time and knows all about how Robert Jordan wanted them to be pronounced, and that stuff.
I've never looked it up. I'm sure I butcher.
I butcher them all. We butcher them all the time.
It's so funny because in Game of Thrones, it's like, well, the audiobooks say one thing, and there's different readers for the audiobooks now, right? Because you have the history, and then you have the Dunk and Egg series, and then you have the main series. So each of those pronounce things different way. You have the show, which pronounces it its own way, and then George R. Martin pronounces it an entirely other way. And so it's like, which is it? And people blasted us left and right. And then we have people who say we have people on our podcast. Shout out to Lady Sarah, right? She always calls her Daenerys. As Daenerys,
I know,
and I'm always and I just okay, well, whatever,
I roll with it. I've never said a thing about it.
She pronounces things and hey, it's great. It's just
is it Brienne or Brienne? I don't
in the books it's Brienne and stuff and then there's
the audiobooks it's Patyr Baelish.
Right. Well, and then there's Balon Greyjoy, which is what they say in the books and the show. But then, the series creator, George R. Martin, calls him Balon. And so it's like, well, okay. So, I'm sure that's going to happen in Wheel of Time, too. There'll be things that people are like, that's not how that's pronounced. But then once it happens on the show, that will be the way it's pronounced because that's where more people will consume it. So,
I just love Tyrion's Irish accent. In the
yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Well, okay. We'll finish up here, and we'll go back, and I'll keep talking about some of the characters here, just as we're talking, kind of just initial thoughts of where I'm at on them. Like I said, like all the girls. So when you get to kind of maybe the side characters, and characters maybe I just want a little bit more of, and I'm sure we'll get it throughout the series. Loyal. I mean, every time Loyal's basically on page, he's great. And I could totally be down to go on just like a Loyal solo adventure. And see more of that. Now that we're getting into the IEL, they all seem awesome. Avienda seems like she's going to be an absolute, beast.
Yeah.
But if there's one character that I really want more of, and I know it's probably not going to happen for a long time, is Tam Althor. Where I want more. There's so much. I feel like there's just so many secrets and things we could learn more of. And the same thing with Min. Min's there too. I feel like we're finally getting her back a little bit. So, totally going forward. But I guess maybe I'll pose that to you guys here, and then we can kind of close out. Is early on, who was there any character that you were like, wow, I gotta know more about this person? Anybody early on that you were like, oh man, I need more of this guy?
I'm gonna take it. Okay, so all right, straight up, I fell in love with Min. And I mean, like, legitimately, I was like, yes, this is awesome. I love, and I know that some people are like, what? But no, I thought, number one, she's great. She has something really unique, a different type of, like, not the power, but yet can see things, and kind of a mystic, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. She's different. She's not like your typical, the whole, it's very, it's clearly pointed out multiple times. She doesn't wear dresses and all that kind of stuff, And so let me try to think, what all does Matt know? Yeah, there's a cool scene with her, in Rand when Rand after his battle there, and Landfair shows
up. End of the Great Hunt,
yeah, Landfair shows up, and it's pretty cool. And I was like, let's go. So of the girls, I was like, because at first, I'm like, all right, Nynaeve annoyed. I was like, what? Come on, Nynaeve. Like I liked Moiraine. I was like, no, I trust her. And then Nynaeve didn't, and I was like, what's going on? And then by the end of the Eye of the World, I'm like, I love Nynaeve. She's freaking great. Like, oh my God. And then Min, who showed up in the Eye of the World and then later on becomes a, bigger deal. I'm like, no, this girl's amazing. And so I and I was like, she's perfect for Rand. The whole thing. This is where I'm at. I was sold on it. I was like, let's go. So that's the girls. I like everyone else. I think you're really meant to just fall in love with Rand and like him as a character. And you like him, but you hear all these prophecies that just don't sound good.
Right.
They can't all be good. I mean, some of the stuff you have already heard in the prophecies, you're going, oh, that sounds dark and that sounds bad. And it sounds like, wait, how could our sweet Rand, who's showing up at the Wine Spring Inn, and he's showing up there for Beltane, and Egwene is there, the whole thing. That guy's going to be fulfilling those prophecies. Bull crap. And so that is sort of the roller coaster I think that this takes you on, because Rand's my guy. He's a Lord Dragon. Amen. He's a Lord Dragon, and I want him to ride again on the Winds of Time. So,
Okay, Nick. Early on, is any character you're like, oh man, I just want more of him or her?
Oh man, I was. The first read through, you get to Shadar Logoth, and you meet this mysterious man named Mordeth.
Jeez.
And man, I was really okay, that's spoilers. Well, at the time, I was hoping they'd dive a little more into his backstory, but
yeah,
kind of the mystery kind of captured me of it. I mean, obviously, Lan was just an absolute boss.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Maryland. You're like, what's this, juggler performer dude doing? Then he starts throwing knives and taking down Trollocs. I mean, he rushes a fade.
He rushes a fade. What?
Single combat. Yeah, he's like, we'll take him. Yeah,
dude. Oh my, you're so right. Sometimes we forget, we kind of just take it in stride, but he rushed a fade. What?
Yeah,
that's
nuts. And then Baal Doman, man, Baal Doman.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he ended up being one of my favorites, but in the beginning,
he's one of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, well, most people, they're like, they don't even think Trollocs are real. And then Rand jumps on this dude's boat, and he's like, he already knows, he's like, oh, well, they're after me. And it's
They're
like,
after
well, what's
me.
this? Yeah, what's this dude doing that he's got Trollocs chasing him?
Yeah, I know. That's
Talking about all the different mysteries of the world, and
yeah.
he's got all these weird artifacts, and
Hey, and can I say that's a really good point because Matt was talking about character, and we were talking earlier about like it all pays off and everything. Kind of pay attention to every character, even that small farmer who loans so and so something.
yeah, big deal.
Big deal. Pay attention. Because when I first came across Beldoman, I was like, whatever. We won't see that guy again.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, he's such a cool character. He's a cool dude. He's nice. He's just a good dude. So anyway,
Then you got Narg, who probably nobody
Oh,
even knows
God.
what I'm talking about.
yeah,
The
no,
Trolloc in
it's
Rand's house.
in the beginning, yeah, the one who speaks
Yeah.
or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. Narg
Uh,
smart. Nog
Narg.
remember. Or Narg remember.
Yeah, it's like, is there more on that guy? Are we gonna actually go and dude, the Trollocs are actually I think for even like a younger reader, and even just when I first read the series, the Fades and Trollocs,
They're scary.
yeah, they're kind of scary. I'm like, wow.
There's some.
Wow. And then that was like the Drakkar. I was like, what the heck is this? And so
Yeah.
and when more,
Oh wait, I can't say that.
yeah. I almost said it too.
I think you know what I was. I think we were thinking of the same guy.
Moraine, her she's powerful, right? And she's super powerful. And so when she's like, no, we need to leave now, you're like, wait, what? Come on now. Just won't you use the power? Come on, let's just use the power. It's so it's so great. And then she's like, no, no, I wouldn't stand a chance. Let's go.
But
like,
I think and then I think the character everyone wanted more of was Logain.
Oh my gosh.
Because Rand's staring at him, and he's just like,
well, and you see him, and then it's like, okay, well, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. No, Nick, you hit it. That's that spot where he's staring at him, throws his head back, almost like he's a madman laughing, and it's like,
yeah.
Hey, dude, have you seen the artwork? By the way, Matt, because you could totally look this up now.
Yeah, it's so good.
Dude, the artwork surrounding Logain going into Caemlyn, surrounded by Red Sisters. First of all, it's not what I thought, and there's different versions of it.
I will say the
actor
actor that's going to be playing him is like literally spot on of what I imagined Logain looking like. Like that guy is that guy is going to be perfect. That guy's going to be perfect.
It looks cool.
And I feel like if they've cast somebody to be Logain, because we haven't really seen him again, and we're in book 4, I definitely feel like his arc is going to be different.
Well, in the show, I imagine
in the show, or maybe there's just stuff that happens with him later that they're just going to shift forward, or God, there's another character we will be talking about in our next episode. And you guys have to remind me of his name. It starts with an M. It's who the Amerlin seats. Like, well, you're gonna have to gentle him on the spot.
Oh, Mazrim
Taim.
Yeah, and so I mean, again, I'm not far enough to know what happened.
That just happened for you.
It literally just happened. But it's like, okay, maybe that could be a character. So maybe Logain breaks out, and it's like, hey, we gotta go track him down. Maybe they merge some of that. I don't know, because again, I'm not. That's literally that just happened, and so it's like, okay, well, maybe they can shift that to be Logain.
A cool way they could do it in the show too is like, when Tom shows up to town, or when Pod on Fane shows up and he's talking about the riots and the dragon and stuff, they could actually show like Logain fighting, or like show the Aes Sedai like riding off to go capture him.
Yeah.
They could do that. I was thinking they could probably do the same thing with Tam, like when he's having his fever dreams or whatever, when Rand's dragging him, like they could totally do some flashbacks to.
Well, apparently they're gonna do now, Nick. I can't believe I'm about to hit this on the podcast.
Spoiler, yeah.
No. He's doing fine.
But just just.
I'm actually about to drop a bombshell here. I don't think I've said this on the podcast. I've told Matt this. The book I've never read.
New Spring.
I've never read it. I've never read it.
It's about the IU War. It's good.
I know, and I've read all the wiki pages on it, and I've read everything about it. So when I was going through the series, and I looked at like, oh, this is when he wrote that, like after this, and I was like, okay, should I do that? My buddy, our buddy Tom Grossclose was like, nah, dude, just keep reading. Got to the end of the series, and I was like, I don't need to know the backstory. We should
see. I almost feel like you definitely should read New Spring last, because if you read New Spring before you read Eye of the World, it would ruin.
Yeah, so he was
that's
right.
That's what people have said. That's what I feel like people have said.
Yeah. That was good guidance in that. Just read on through, and I was like, all right, cool. So I did that, but what I shouldn't have done is, because after I was finished, I was like, well, I'll just go look it all up, and that was dumb, because now I've had no motivation to go like actually read it, because I'm like, well, I kind of know the major takeaways.
You
but
could always, like,
still,
if you don't have time to read it, you could always audiobook it. It's a pretty short audiobook compared to all the others.
Yeah, and I definitely am gonna have to. I mean, I before the show comes out, I've already told myself, like, all right, you got to squeeze that one in, because I just need to know, because that was the thing, is that they may have, with Moraine being the main character, this in some of what I've read in that, we don't need to talk about it necessarily. It's cool stuff. It's cool. I mean, obviously, it's stuff that's it's a prequel, and it sets the stage that we understand more about the two rivers and Moraine's whole arc and journey and tower life. And so yeah, I think they might show some of that. So that's why I bring that up, is because when the show comes out, it seems like they're going to show some of the events, that kind of took place there. So
yeah. So
oh yeah.
Cool, guys. Awesome. Well, hey, Nick, thanks for coming on, doing some Patreon content with us. It was fun to just kind of, you and we'll have to get you back on, and maybe you and Ez can just do some late game talks. I know a lot of our patrons definitely want some of that, like, spoil,
and we're going to have to mark it very clearly.
Complete spoilers. We can talk about thoughts and theories that
talk about the prologue.
Yeah,
just talk about who's really the good guy there.
My God,
Nick is a little on the dark side.
My God,
here we go. Yeah, Nick told me to.
Is it the dark side though?
Is it
again? I remember when we were trying to come up with names for the show, and I was looking stuff up, and I remember talking to Nick, like, we're trying to figure out a name, so we're trying to find like a group.
I said Chosen of Shaitan.
Yeah,
and Matt told me that, and I was like, he was reading to me. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, it said Nick said we should call the podcast, like the followers of Shaitan. It's like, whoa,
you said it's whoa.
Hey, it's dangerous for you, not for me. All
right. Oh my God.
Hey, he says it right in the prologue.
Awesome. I know. Awesome. All right. Well, hey, awesome. Hey, thanks Nick for coming on. Thank you guys for supporting us here on Patreon. And guys, remember that the grave is no bar to our call.